Allahu Akbar.
Esteemed members of the leadership of ICNA-MAS, esteemed members of the dais, and honored guests. This morning I come to speak to you about discussing the God that unites us. I have been engaged with dialogue with ICNA since 1996, and I will review a little bit of our activities for you today. I must begin, however, with a bit of history, perhaps a history that many of you who are so young do not know, but it is the history of my youth. The Roman Catholic Church, having recently experienced the barbarity of the Second World War, was called by the Pope, Blessed John the 23rd, to examine carefully the theology of the Church found now in a world of many non-Christian religions. Huge refugee populations, shifting both after World War I and World War II, found the Church in lands populated by non-Christian religions: the Muslims, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Jews, and of course, many others. Blessed John the 23rd called all of the bishops, and by the way, a bishop in our terminology is the leader of a local church. He called all of the bishops from the Roman Catholic world, over 3,000 in number, to come to Rome to discuss the Church in a world where the first half of the 20th century had been bloodied by the deaths of literally tens of millions of God's creatures in numerous bloody wars and conflicts. The huge Basilica of St. Peter in Vatican City was turned into a giant conference center, with bishops meeting in conclave, speaking in Latin, the language of the Church, yet coming from all the continents of the world with all of their native languages. And they met to discuss the state of the Church and its teachings in this new world, so bloodied by conflict. That meeting, called the Second Vatican Council, began in 1962, 50 years ago this year. It produced many learned tracts and documents, constantly being reviewed and refined before their presentation to the members of our church and the world itself. One of the many documents proclaimed was entitled Declaration on the Relationship of the Church to Non-Christian Religions. It was issued and approved on the 28th of October in 1965, after many revisions during the 3 years of the Council. That document became known by the name Nostra Aetate, which is a shorthand that we use in the Church. It is the first 2 words of the document. But remember, the document was written in Latin. What does Nostra Aetate mean in English? It means in our days or in our times. I will read you the first sentence in English so that you will understand we identify as Catholics our important documents written by our popes and by the bishops by the first 2 words. And the document Nostra Aetate begins with its first sentence: in our times, when every day men are being drawn closer together and the ties between various peoples are being multiplied, the Church is giving deeper study to her relationship with non-Christian religions. I will read in a moment the section of Nostra Aetate which pertains to Islam. because it is part of my topic for the day, discussing the God who unites us. And I quote from the document itself. Upon the Muslims too, the church looks with esteem. They adore one God, living and enduring, merciful and all-powerful, maker of heaven and earth, and speaker to men. They strive to submit wholeheartedly even to his inscrutable decrees, just as did Abraham, with whom the Islamic faith is pleased to associate itself. Though they do not acknowledge Jesus as God, they revere him as a prophet. They also honor Mary, his virgin mother. At times they call upon her too, and with much devotion. In addition, they await the day of judgment, when God will give each man his due after raising him up. Consequently, they prize the moral life and give worship to God, especially through prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. Although in the course of the centuries, many quarrels and hostilities have arisen between Catholics and Muslims, this most sacred synod urges all to forget the past and to strive sincerely for mutual understanding. On behalf of all mankind, let them make common cause of safeguarding and fostering social justice, moral values, peace, and freedom. End of the quote. As part of the esteem the church has for Islam, the local church leaders, namely the bishops, engage in dialogue with our Muslim confreres in an effort to understand and appreciate the faith beliefs of one another, and when important, to collaborate in addressing societal issues or matters impacting each other's community of believers. Since 1996, the bishops of the United States have engaged in formal and official dialogue with members of ICNA, and I have been a member of that dialogue from the very beginning. Our dialogue takes place on 4 levels, as do all of the dialogues pursued by the Roman Catholic Church with Islam around the world. These 4 levels of dialogue are, first of all, the dialogue of the heart, which enables us as God's creatures to share in his creation as partners. The second level of our dialogue is the dialogue of daily life, which calls upon us to promote human values, the values that we share with God as our guarantor in commerce, education, medical care, and our daily engagements. We must respect the laws of God by leading moral and upright lives, manifesting God's love for us and our love for one another. I was most pleased today when I picked up my blue bag from ICNA and found in it the kindness and goodness manifested by the people of ICNA in exercising all of those human values, caring for the orphans, the widow, the sick, and those who live on the margins of society. You and I, we share in that work. We call it Catholic Charities. You at ICNA have it by your name, your Dawa. The third level of our dialogue, in which I've been engaged since 1996, is the dialogue of speech. It invites us to speak of God and put aside our distractions with power, wealth, and all that is not essential to God and humankind. In our dialogue of speech with ICNA, our experts and your scholars seek to address topics of mutual concern and interests. The results of one of our 4-year cycles from 2006 to 2010 resulted in a 150-page document entitled Marriage, Roman Catholic and Sunni Muslim Perspectives. The entire document is found on the official website of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. It is there for people to learn the importance of marriage from the perspective of Catholicism and Islam. Our latest document, currently being edited for posting in 2013, has as its title, Education Guides on How We Teach About One Another. Sheikh Abdul Rahman Khan submitted the official text for the Muslim team, and Dr. Sandra Keating of Providence College prepared the text for the Roman Catholic participants. These two documents we are now currently reviewing and editing for posting next year. Our objective in doing this is to provide members of our respective communities with appropriate tools to handle questions about matters of marriage, matters of education, as they are believed and understood by the other. This is most important. What do we understand? What do you understand? So that there is one place where it is documented consistently, so that there are no aberrations, that there is only the truth as we see it. Our next series of meetings has as its topic religion in the public sector, a topic which clearly relates to the theme of this convention, defending religious freedoms, understanding the Sharia. As we both know, in today's secular and pluralistic society, there is a tendency to marginalize religion, and in some instances, to attack religious belief, and most horrifying of all, sometimes to attack believers. I return for a moment to the 4 levels of dialogue, because the 4th level is perhaps the most important of all. It is the dialogue of silence. A dialogue of silence? This dialogue asks us to listen, that God may speak with us, touch our hearts, and inspire us to act and speak as the servants of God. In our annual meeting with ICNA, when possible, we pray together. Attending the daily prayers of our Muslim brother collaborators is what the Catholics do. While our Muslim brothers attend the Mass and our daily prayers, usually the Psalms of David and Solomon, in order to show that we both want to hear what God has to say, not what we have to say. We are convinced that the all-knowing will hear our prayers, different though they may be, and in his mercy and goodness, he will lead us to wisdom in our deliberations. As I noted earlier, the purpose of these deliberations is to prepare documents which can be shared by our fellow constituents for them to understand and speak knowledgeably of the other, and thus to grow in the respect and appreciation of the other. We are all God's creatures. We live in his creation. It is not enough to just tolerate one another. Rather, we must learn to embrace each other. Yes, we embrace each other with our differences because God made us all, and God does not make junk. We Catholic bishops at ICNA are following the lead given to us by 138 Islamic scholars who on Eid al-Fitr in 2007 responded to Pope Benedict XVI's Regensburg address in 2006 with a letter entitled, "A Common Word Between Us and You." The 138 scholars, representing 43 Muslim nations, led by Prince Hassan from the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, with skillful and careful exegesis of the Christian scriptures and the Holy Quran, addressed the unbreakable bond between the love of God and the love of neighbor, and the fundamental contradiction of resorting to violence or exclusion of the other in the name of God. This landmark document in Muslim and Christian relations should serve as a model for us locally to encourage and instruct our constituents to be good Muslims, to be good Christians. In a secular world which is attempting to diminish and in some cases persecute believers as being out of step with the times or being just plain old-fashioned. We, you and I together, must challenge this rampant secularity by means of our witness to the teachings of our holy books. As I noted earlier, your packet of material demonstrates your willingness to do, not just to talk. Religion is not just about words. True witness to religion is about doing God's will. Doing, not talking. We must show the world, you and I, that the love of God and the love of one another, these are what are important. That this love which we share, that this love which is the common word between us, that this love will enlighten a world and dispel the darkness of our times. It is our responsibility to do that. That this love, that it will turn hatreds into love, that it will turn sorrows into joy, just as you help the widows, the orphans, and the marginalized by your good works. You bring joy to their sorrow. That it will turn war into the peace that each of us so much desires. That religion will lead us to be a people of faith and reason, not people of violence. And that we will lead all of God's people to a better world because we are doing good. Inshallah, salam alaikum. Thank you.